Hello again. Chris Lee, Blake Lovell, and Max Barr of Southeastern 14 here to preview and give our predictions on Auburn's road trip to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The Iron Bowl of basketball, Auburn, Alabama in Tuscaloosa, ESPN Wednesday night, 6:30 Central. We don't have a line on this as we're doing it, but we averaged BPI, Bart Torvik, and Ken Pomeroy to get an idea of what it might be. And those three sources have Alabama by 2.5 with about a 58% chance of winning. We'll give you our thoughts on that in a moment. But first, a reminder. This is brought to you by BetOnline. NFL playoffs are here. The NBA season is in full swing. BetOnline has you covered with all the up-to-the-second odds, news, and scores with additional lines, trends, and info on desktop and mobile. You can access the world's best wagering information anytime. Head there today, get in on the action, see the updated odds. Remember to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to get your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online where the game starts. Gentlemen, this has got to be a top 10 game of the SEC season. I'm so excited. You have Alabama, which has been, I think still is, the number one offensive team in the country. According to Ken Pom, Alabama scored 98 points or more. I think it's at least 7 times. Auburn is the only team in the SEC in the top 10 of adjusted defensive efficiency and offensive efficiency in the SEC. Auburn on a neutral court would be a slight favorite, but this is not on a neutral court. It is in Alabama, which makes it even more entertaining. Blake, let's start with you. How do you see this matchup between Auburn and Alabama?
Chaos. Yeah. I mean, it's always a chaotic game. The way these two teams play, they'll get up and down the floor. Should be high scoring. I think it's, I mean, this is the first big test for Auburn in terms of going on the road. And I mean, they've played at Arkansas and at Vanderbilt so far. Those were not very challenging, and now you're playing your rival in that gym. And this is the toughest test for Bruce Pearl's team to this point. So all the doubters and the critics, this is one that they have had circled for a while now, because this is the one where they want to see if Auburn can put up a performance here to, actually look like a true Final Four type contender. Because I think if they go in here and take care of business against Alabama, I don't know how you couldn't put them in that conversation. So that's one part of the equation. The other part of the equation, we assume Mark Sears is going to be closer to 100% than he was against Tennessee. So that is, I think, significant for Alabama. And I mean, this is, I mean, Alabama's been really good at home this year outside of the Clemson game. And I am very curious to see how the strength of Alabama's offense going up against the strength of Auburn's defense, how that plays out, because this is one that I think is the biggest matchup between these two.
Yeah, Chris, you mentioned Alabama's offensive efficiency numbers and just how good they've been. But when you go through just the 5 conference games, Auburn has had a more efficient offense, actually. So that's, to first glance, you think Alabama's going to have the edge there, but when they've been playing tougher competition, Auburn's actually had the edge. Looking at from a betting standpoint and just how these spots shake out, you have Auburn coming off of 5 straight double-digit SEC wins. I think it's like 11 straight double-digit wins in total. On top of the world, now you got to go to a rival on the road. We would call that a letdown spot. But I don't think it's going to be much of a letdown spot, because Auburn remembers what happened last time these two teams played. And that was a 90-85 Alabama overtime win after Auburn led by 17 with under 10 minutes to go. Janai Broome fouls out with 7:30 left in the game. Jalen Williams fouls out. Alan Flanagan fouls out. Cardwell gets 4 fouls in 11 minutes. So they remember. And if you go back another year, 2 years ago, that was the Walker Kessler game where he fouled out in what seemed like 30 seconds. So I do not think this is going to be one of those betting spots where you catch a team taking a team lightly on the road here. I don't think that at all. And you have Alabama coming back home after a kind of a humiliation type of game where they're going to be ready. So both teams, I think, neither is going to be in that like, oh, we're going to catch a team taking them lightly type of spot. Not at all here. When you look at the numbers, I think the biggest difference is got to be the turnovers. Obviously, we've been harping on Alabama for their turnovers. They rank dead last in the SEC in turnovers through 5 games. Auburn ranks first in forcing turnovers. So advantage Auburn there. But that's kind of it. I mean, these teams are both going to shoot the ball well. And yeah, it's just kind of, that's the only numbers thing that I find a difference. I think this thing is going to be like Blake said, chaos. Chris, you usually have some numbers there, Chris? What do you got on this one?
Well, yeah, I think it is going to be a cast. Actually, some of the numbers I wanted to bring up were some things that you touched on. So I think we're on the same page here. And I'm going to ask you because, speaking honestly, I have an idea of where I want to go with my pick. But I'm still, it's so close. I'm still open to some evidence, and I want to hear you guys talk through this because you may even help me make up my mind whether I'm missing something.
Mr. Independent Thinker who can think for himself has decided he wants us to pick for him. Wow. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, he nailed me there. But in all seriousness, okay. I just ran through all the stats about Alabama being the #1 offensive efficiency team in the country to lead this off. But we get into league play. Alabama's offense, according to Ken Pom, has only been the 4th most efficient in the league. So that's number one. Number two, we've talked about Alabama's defense being an issue. Guess what? Alabama's defense in league play, number 4 in defensive efficiency. So that's kind of interesting. These two teams have played very different schedules. I have this kind of theory. You see some teams that are computer outliers. BYU and Iowa State are 2 of them this year that you just don't know what you've got until they play some teams. And sometimes it sorts itself out that verifies the computers. And sometimes it says, no, this team was just a fraud that played weak competition. Well, Alabama has played all comers in the non-conference portion of the schedule. Guess what? It pretty much lost just about every one of them, too, against good teams on the level of Auburn. At the same time, Auburn didn't play much of anybody.
Right.
And so do I think Auburn is what Gary Parrish terms a computer tricker? I don't think that, but I don't know that yet. Those are more thoughts than they are questions. But I want to get your thoughts on what I've just said, and I'll start with Blake.
I don't think we should go too far in the direction of Alabama because of what you just said. Offensively, being, I mean, 4th is still pretty good, right? They've played at Tennessee, so let's just call it what it is. I mean, they've had to play at Tennessee, they've had to play at Mississippi State, which they played well there offensively, but the Tennessee game just is going to skew those numbers. So I don't know that we can read too much into that, just based on the fact that, so did Ole Miss, so did Florida. We saw what happened. Like look, if Auburn played at Tennessee right now, yeah, I'd probably be a little bit worried about Auburn too, even as good as they've been. I'd be worried about Kentucky. Anybody plays there. So I don't think we should go too far in that direction. But I also think we have to be careful here because, like I said a minute ago, if Alabama wins this game, the parade is going to come out about how overrated Auburn was and all this other stuff. But it is a 30-something game season. And if they lose a rivalry game on the road to Alabama, who, again, I still think is really good, they're the number 4 team in our power rankings, all sitting there on an island by themselves trying to get into the top 3, as we said. Unless Auburn just gets blown out, I don't know that my opinion on them is going to change all that much because I don't think they're tricking anybody. I think they're destroying everybody. They're dominating everybody. They're not tricking anybody. You could say the 2 close games they've had this year, they've lost both of them. But I would also like to point out the last time they lost the game was December 3rd. That's a month and a half ago. And I don't see a lot of other teams that are doing that. And so it is going to be interesting. There's no doubt, because my question is, okay, what happens if Auburn finds themselves in a 3-point game, down 3 with 2 minutes to go? It's a spot we've not seen them in very often. And so how do you respond to that? because you've got a freshman guard in Aiden Holloway, right? You've got someone like that, but you've also got Trey Donaldson, who's younger. But you've got a surrounding cast of older guys. Where if you get the ball to Jalen Williams, you get the ball to Broom. Denver Jones, older guy, like Katie Johnson's out there. And so there's a lot of those different things. So the more I look at this one, the more I just wonder. It's an interesting spot for both teams because this is sort of a different setup that we haven't seen from either of these two teams this year, just based on whether it's the difference of the schedules or just this kind of game of this magnitude. It's a rivalry game, and so we don't have a sample size on that just yet between these two. So,
you gonna make a pick, or are you waiting?
Oh no, I thought we were just. I think you said Chris
Chris,
we were
you're
just talking
muted.
through it before we make our picks.
Yeah, that's where I am too. Max, I kind of wanted to hear your reaction to that too, and then I got a couple more things I wanted to bring up before we get to picks.
Yeah, so this is going to be a tricky one to pick no matter what, because you have a team that has been dominating but hasn't played anybody on the road. And then you have a team that has had some issues with turnovers. You've heard Nate Oates talk about the issues with toughness. He wants his team to play harder, and they just got walloped, but now they're at home in a bounce back spot. So it's like you kind of like almost with like a confirmation bias type of thing. Whatever side that you want to pick here, you can find the angle and you can find supporting stats, supporting trends, whatever you want to call it, to support your take. So that's why I think it's so hard, because this is a rare game where we genuinely have two clear paths to victory. A lot of times when we do these breakdowns, we kind of get to a point where we're like, okay, this team has this path, and this path, but this team's probably going to narrow down to they got to just do this, and that's all they got. I don't see that in this game. It's like both teams have their ways to win. So I don't think it's clear on either side, but there's one quote that I might tip my hand at who I'm picking with this, but quote from Nate Oates after the press conference against Tennessee. Question was, how big of an issue was Jonas Adu when you guys were trying to get into the paint? Oates said, yeah, he was a huge problem. We are fortunate he got 2 fouls, and we would have been down a whole lot more if they didn't get into foul trouble. Now, I know that Auburn has had a history of getting into foul trouble at Coleman, but that's not something I want to, bank on in a breakdown. So I think that's pretty telling right from the head coach at where he thinks his team stands against opposing front courts. So might have just tipped my hand, but that's another thing I wanted to bring up.
Well, I'll lead off the picks with a little bit of reasoning. And again, Max, you and I are on the same page this morning because, yes, you always worry about foul trouble on the road in the SEC. If there's a team in this league that can withstand foul trouble, though, it is the Auburn Tigers.
Great point.
15 guys average 15 minutes or more. This team is deep. It plays hard. And it has got experience in the post. I don't know if there's a team in the country that's got more good experience post play than Auburn with Cardwell and Broom and Jalen Williams. That's number one. Number two, I think the stuff that you mentioned about ball handling and ball security, Alabama's not great in terms of protecting the ball. It is elite offensively. That is its Achilles heel. Auburn is not elite in terms of forcing turnovers, but it's good. And another thing that Auburn is great at is three-point defense. 29% allowed. Alabama shoots 39%. I see enough things that Auburn can do to offset Alabama. And then I also worry a little bit about Sears. Guys tend to play a little banged up. If it's an ankle issue, which correct me, that it was an ankle issue, right? I should know this.
Yep, ankle.
But so now Chris is worried about Mark Sears.
So I'm speechless. Yes. So I'm a little concerned about that too. There's just some things that I think this matchup tends to tilt to me to Auburn on a neutral floor, but it's not a neutral floor. It's in Tuscaloosa, but Auburn is also
no idea who you're picking. You have
just the last 5 here
for 2
so
different
it is
ways.
possible.
Oh my God.
Alabama's a slight favorite for reasons, and if Alabama wins this game, I'm going to say, of course, you idiot. You should have taken Alabama at home.
Mm.
But sometimes you pick your spots
Mm.
and you take your chances. I believe this Auburn team is good enough to do it in Tuscaloosa. I think it can do some things that is problematic for Alabama, and I am taking Auburn with the road upset. Blake Lovell, you're next.
No, I got seniority here. I'm going last.
Oh,
Max,
come
you're up.
on.
No, I got SEC basketball seniority. Max, you're up.
That's fine because I've got my pick nailed. This is a team that went to Coleman the past 2 years, led by 17 with 9 minutes left, led by 15 with 8 minutes left. Now you come to this year. It's a much better Auburn roster than the past 2 years. It is a slightly weaker Alabama roster than the past 2 years. Combine Alabama's turnover issues with Auburn's depth and ability to soak fouls. And I will be going with the road dog. Give me Auburn.
Okay, I'm going to tie Blake in knots here. He's gonna probably cut this out of the video. Blake's gut is going to pick Alabama just to be the contrarian, but because I've called him out on it, that's going to make it tough for him. So now I want to see what this guy's going to do.
Ooh.
Or could I also pick Auburn to guarantee the Alabama victory?
There's a lot.
You guys did not realize
This man
that
is always
was
one step ahead of us.
a possibility. So I will tell you, in a battle of two heavyweights between the Auburn Tigers and the Alabama Crimson Tide, I came into this video. I told Max before we started recording, he's like, do you know who you're picking? I said, absolutely. Without a doubt. I know exactly who I'm picking in this one. And so, because that team was Auburn, and then I realized that you two guys are picking Auburn, the plan has come together about as beautifully as it can come together to guarantee the Alabama victory. Because we know if we all three pick Auburn, Alabama is going to walk out victorious at Coleman Coliseum on Wednesday night in regular season SEC basketball play. But there's no way I can side with you two guys now that you've both picked Auburn. So give me a big Mark Sears game here. Alabama, like you said, Chris, I don't know why. I am confused by it. Why they're the favorite in this game, but the numbers know something. And let me tell you, if there's anything I've learned in the past day, it's that these computers know all. Chris's cult of computers, they know everything. And so give me the computers on this game. And somebody's got to pick Alabama because we can't all pick Auburn here. I think Auburn's the better team. I think Auburn winning by double digits is a realistic possibility. I voted Auburn number one in our power rankings this week. I've done it the past 3 weeks, but I just don't think we can all. I don't think we can all pick Auburn here. So give me the Crimson Tide of Alabama fans, and boy, woo, Alabama fans are probably a little nervous now because they know when I pick them, it's done for. Auburn walks out victorious.
Ladies and gentlemen, get your affairs in order. The end of the world could be just around the corner because Blake Lovell has cited the computers.
Well, because I mean, the computers are really, from what I've gathered, and look, I did my research yesterday afternoon on the computers, and these things really seem to know all. And so I'm now understanding your cult, your cult of your computers and all that. Like I really am starting to understand what it's like to be involved in your computer cult. So, yeah. Bart Torvik,
all right, lady.
Ken Pomeroy, net rankings, everything.
You too can join the cult of Southeastern 14. Hit the subscribe button.
Hold on a second. No, you can't.
Hit the
It's
like
not an
button.
official invite. No, we don't have a cult here. Please. Good grief.
That's what people that run cults say.
My God.
Jeez.
Chris is
Jeez.
Auburn fans, this is the person that's supporting you in this game. So really think about that. Really think about that. This is the guy you have backing you in this game right here. Not good.
All in good fun. We have our fun here. We don't take ourselves too seriously. No idea who's going to win this game, but can't wait to watch it. We will recap it later, probably Thursday morning, as we always do. Best way to get it, hit the subscribe button. Do hit the like button. That does help us out. We put a lot of time and effort and energy into this. We don't take ourselves seriously. We do take the work seriously. So thank you for watching. This is Southeastern 14 presented by Bet Online.